guys, it's Jessica with Southern Sparrow, and you've made it to episode 7 of our Mahj 101 series to learn American Mahjong. We are now done with, we have learned about the tiles, we've learned about the National Mahjong League card, we have learned how to set up a game, we've learned how to deal, we've learned how to get organized and choose a section, we've learned how to do the Charleston and the courtesy pass, and how to choose a hand during that process of the Charleston, and now we're ready for gameplay. So you are ready to start throwing tiles and getting closer to winning. And here's how we play the game. So once you finish the Charleston and you do your courtesy pass, you will push out the wall where the deal ended. So, and pardon my reach here, since I'm all by myself, if I had more players, that player would push her own wall. But I like to push it kind of towards the middle of the table, makes it easy for everyone to reach. And now we're ready. I'm the east seat. That means that I was the person who started the deal, and I'm the person who starts the gameplay as well as the east seat. So I have 14 tiles, and everyone else at the table has 13 tiles. In Mahjong, when it is not your turn, you will have 13 tiles. And when it is your turn, or when you win Mahjong, you will have 14 tiles. The east seat, the dealer, starts with 14 because I start with the first turn. I start the game by discarding a tile. Each turn, you discard a tile to end your turn, and I'm going to say its name, to crack. So you will say its name on every discard. Now it's this player to the right's turn. She will draw a tile and rack it, and she will then, that is how she starts her turn, and then she will end her turn with a discard, and she'll say its name, for crack. Every time you discard, you must say the name of the tile that you're discarding. And what that does is that signals to everyone at the table what it is that you're discarding, and it lets them know auditorially what they can possibly call for their hand. So she's discarded a 4 crack. If someone needed that 4 crack, they would say call, and they could take that 4 crack, place it up on top of their rack, and make an exposure of those tiles. So as the game goes on, each turn begins with a drawn tile and ends with a discarded tile to BAM in this case. So the turns pass around the table to the right. In a counterclockwise pattern, our turns will pass, and each player starts their turn with a drawn tile and ends their turn with a discard. So let's see what she has that works towards the hand that I'm building over here. Nothing. Let's see what she has that works towards the hand that I'm building over here. Nothing. Okay, well, I'm gonna steal this joker. Okay, should have set this up a little easier for myself. Let's say that one player discards a 5 crack. The 5 crack is the live tile. The live tile is simply the tile that was most recently discarded. Let's say that this player to my right discarded the 5 crack on her turn. I need 3 5 cracks. My hand calls for a pung, which is 3 of a kind, of 5 cracks. This hand right here in the 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 section needs 3 5 cracks. So I'm gonna say pause. As soon as she puts this down and says what it is, 5 crack, I'm gonna say pause. Now, saying pause just gives you a moment to think. You are not obligated to then take that tile if you say pause. It gives you a second where the other players can't take the tile out from under you, and you can look at what you have on your rack and decide, okay, do I need that? Yes. Do I have the tiles required to take it? Well, what does that mean? When you are calling a tile, in this case I'm calling this 5 crack, when you call a tile, you must show that you are making that little meld for your hand. So in this case, I'm making a grouping of 3 5 cracks. So I have to show that I have either all 3 5 cracks, or in this case, I've gone up with a joker to show that I can make a grouping of 3 5 cracks. And the reason you have to show that is you can't just take a tile and then it not actually work for your hand. If you're taking a tile, you are committing to having that called tile in your final hand. So once I make this exposure and I end my turn with a discard, let's say I discard 7 dot. I end my turn with a discard, I am locked in to this exposure, which means that I must have 3 5 cracks in my hand to win Mahjong. So let's say that I need to pivot later in the game and I think, oh, well, I need, this other hand needs 4 5 cracks. I cannot make that change and go up with another 5 crack. I must find a hand that requires 3 5 cracks, or else I will not be able to win. Once you've exposed on top of your rack, you do have to have that exposure in your hand in order to win. You can't make any changes. I couldn't then decide, oh, I'm just going to have a pair. No, I have to keep this pung for the rest of the game. Okay, I've exposed with those 5 cracks. It had been her discard, right? We know that turns start with a draw and end with a discard, and then they pass counterclockwise to the player to the right. So it's a little bit backwards if you're used to playing cards. You're going to go to the right in Mahjong. So after her discard of that 5 crack, it would have been this player's turn, right? But because I called the 5 crack and exposed it, I stole the turn of that player and this player. So by calling the tile, that becomes my draw, and then I end my turn with a 7 dot, and that with a discarded 7 dot, and that makes it this player's turn. So now the 7 dot is live. This player would draw a tile and rack it. As soon as it's racked into her sloped section of her rack, this 7 dot that was our live tile is dead. So dead tiles cannot be called for exposure. Only live tiles can be called for an exposure. So once she racks her drawn tile, no one can call for this 7 dot. So you can kill a tile either by racking it into your sloped section, or if you draw and discard, then that kills the tile. But get in the habit of, when you draw, immediately rack it into the sloped section of your rack. There's nothing worse than drawing a joker and being thrilled to have your joker, only for someone else at the table to then say call, because you haven't racked it yet, and take this tile, and you have to put the joker back into the wall so that then it becomes someone else's joker. It's a huge bummer. So get in the habit of drawing and immediately racking that tile into the slope section of your rack. Okay, one more thing about this exposure, right? She discarded the 5 crack. I called it and exposed. I had to expose with a joker because I didn't have both of the required 5 cracks to make that grouping of 3. Remember, a group of 3 leg tiles is called a pung. To make that pung, I had to use a joker. So if someone else at the table, or I draw it, if anyone gets that 5 crack, let's say it's in someone's rack right now, or someone draws it from the wall on a later turn, they can then exchange for my joker and pull this down into their own sloped rack and use it for their hand. So let's say that this player to my right had the 5 crack. On her next turn, she would start her turn with a draw. She would hand me the 5 crack and say, I'll take your joker, please. I would put my new 5 crack here and give her the joker. And then she would end her turn with a discard. If I draw the 5 crack on my next turn or later in the game, I draw a 5 crack, I can then exchange my own joker, put the 5 crack here, take my joker back into my slope section of my rack and use it for some other part of my hand. So that is how you do, it's called a joker swap or a joker exchange. And anytime someone makes an exposure by calling a tile and shows that exposure with the joker, that joker is up for grabs by any player at the table. Okay, let's refresh. Every turn starts with a draw and a rack. Every turn ends with a discard. Bam. You say the name of the discard as you discard it, face up in the middle of the table, and that tells everyone at the table what the live tile is. The live tile is available to be called for an exposure. as you work through this wall, then the next wall would get pushed out. And we would keep going all the way around, and hopefully at some point someone would get the last tile that they need to match the 14 tiles in their selected hand, and they would say Mahj or Mahjong, and then they would show us their hand up on the top of their rack. I don't have a completed hand, but if I did, I would come up like this and I would tell you, okay, here's the hand I was going for. And then everyone at the table would look at that hand on their card and they'd say, okay, yep, pung of 5 cracks, a pair of 7 cracks, etc. And they would confirm that I had the tiles that I needed for that mahjong. If I claim that I've won and I haven't, it's called a false mahj, and then my tiles are dead, and hopefully the other players haven't already thrown their tiles, and then they could continue. If people have already started to get rid of their tiles before realizing that I had called mahjong in error, then we would have to play a new game. If we get all the way through all of these walls and we come to this last tile and nobody wins, then that's called a wall game, meaning no player won, the wall wins, and we throw our tiles back in, shuffle them up, rebuild our walls, deal again, and start the next game. So that is how gameplay works in American Mahjong. And now you're basically ready. Happy Mahjong, y'all.